Everyone's mic off. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, be advised that notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board at Town Hall and serving the officially designated newspapers a notice stating that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7:30 p.m. on March 19, 2019. Please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ms. Burstein?
Here.
Mr. Levy? Ms. Lieberberg?
Here.
Ms. Prupus?
Here.
Mayor Phil-Eglo?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the December 18th, 2018 Township Committee meeting minutes? Motion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the December 18th, 2018 Special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the January 2nd, 2019 Organization Meeting Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have a proclamation. Is there anybody here from the Red Cross to accept it? I'll meet you at the podium. So you were in the Red Cross? Whereas in Millburn Township, we have a long history of helping our neighbors in need, American Red Cross Month is a special time to recognize and thank our heroes, those Red Cross volunteers and donors who give of their time and resources to help the community members. And whereas more than 137 years ago, the American Red Cross was established as a humanitarian organization guided by 7 fundamental principles: humanity, impartiality, independence, to provide services to those in need regardless of race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or citizen status. Today, the American Red Cross is one of the largest humanitarian organizations in the world and delivers its mission every day to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. Every year, American Red Cross responds to an average of more than 62,000 disasters across the country, from small home fires to devastating massive disasters. Last year's large crises included mudslides in California, a volcano in Hawaii, wildfires, to our home fire campaign. Since the campaign launched in October 2015, the New Jersey region has worked with community partners to install more than 31,000 smoke alarms. Meanwhile, in our area, the Red Cross handles an average of over 5,000 emergency military calls every year and collects an average of 95,000 units of blood from generous donors. March is Red Cross Month, a special time to recognize and thank the Red Cross volunteers and donors who give their time and resources to help the community. The American Red Cross shelters, feeds, and provides emotional support to victims of disasters, supplies about 40% of the nation's blood, teaches skills that save lives, provides international humanitarian aid that supports military families and members. We dedicate the month of March to all those who support the American Red Cross mission to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Millburn Township Committee, by the virtue of the authority vested in us by the Constitution and laws of Millburn Township in New Jersey, we hereby proclaim March 2019 as American Red Cross Month and encourage all persons to support this organization in its noble humanitarian missions. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words about your participation in the Red Cross?
Okay.
Okay. And what's your name, honey?
I'm Helen.
Hi, Helen.
So I'm the club president of the Red Cross Club at Millburn High School, and I'd just like to thank Millburn Township for recognizing this month as Red Cross Month and for letting us hold our monthly blood drives at the library, which remains, I think, one of the largest, if not the largest, blood drive in northern New Jersey to this day. So thank you for letting us be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sometimes we don't realize how much the Red Cross does, and it's really good to hear, and especially the blood drives we have in Millburn. Very important. So if you're able to give blood, please do. Okay, reports. So, okay, first, welcome everybody this evening. Everyone's very aware of the disaster that happened in New Zealand. And last week, I attended a press conference held by Governor Murphy called Building a Safer New Jersey Combating Gun Violence. The governor talked about the urgency for getting illegal guns off New Jersey streets. In Jersey City, almost 400 illegal guns were collected just alone in 2018. Another township member was there, Kevin Quinn, and he is the chairman of the Brady campaign. You might be familiar and remember James Brady, President Reagan's former White House press secretary who was shot and left permanently disabled. Governor Murphy talked about holding gun manufacturers more accountable, the need for sensible yet stricter gun licensing laws, background checks, and the need for gun safeties. So, really important issue nowadays. We held the first of 2 public outreach meetings for the planned improvements at the Short Hills train station. Christine Bugle, our town engineer, outlined the initial ideas. This project is specifically targeting the disorganization on only the Chatham Road side of the station. So we had a good turnout, a lot of discussion, and the number one item everyone agreed upon is the need for better lighting everywhere along Chatham Road. The need for more parking was discussed, which would include moving the handicap spots that are next to the station versus they are now across the street in the parking lot. Additional spots can be achieved also on the station side, and adding more spots by allowing for angled-in parking along Chatham Road. A median will be built along the center of Chatham Road, which will slow traffic by narrowing the road, as well as serve as a pedestrian refuge by providing specific and safe crossings. We encourage users of the Short Hills train station to attend this Sunday, the 24th, at the Millburn Library at 3 p.m. for the next outreach. In the meantime, the plans can be found on the website. Have they been put up yet?
They will be up in the morning.
Okay,
Yes.
up in the morning. Check it out. PACS met again, and our first task will be have our in-house engineer work in conjunction with our traffic consultant firm to implement revisions in the south corners of Millburn and Main Street. This will include scaling back the bump out in front of Bubble Tea and relocating that traffic light which has been hit several times. We will also bring back the dedicated right lane in front of the lighting store. These changes will open up circulation that was constricted and has been problematic. We will also be using paint and new signage to make a dedicated right turn lane on Millburn Avenue onto Spring Street. We will have our traffic consultants investigate the option of head-in angled parking along Millburn Avenue from the deli as far up Millburn Avenue as possible. This provides 2 important benefits. We gain many parking spots, and more importantly, this will change Millburn Avenue to 2 lanes, slowing traffic speeds considerably. This can also be done initially with paint. This has to be measured by our engineers. It has to be really discussed and flushed out if this is a direction we want to go. But everyone's hearing about people speeding up the 3 lanes of Millburn Avenue. So this could be a very good solution. Our task is to fix what can be fixed in the most cost-effective and least disruptive manner while keeping safety paramount. And that is our task, and we intend to achieve that with our meetings and asking our residents. So that's what I have for now. Thank you. Committeewoman Bernstein? Bernstein. I'm giving you an N lately. I'm sorry.
I'll start calling you Mayor Bork.
If I stop dyeing my hair, I'll look like Mayor Bork.
There you go.
Oh, I don't dye my hair. I'm natural redhead. Sorry.
All right, so I attended the library meeting this past Monday of the Board of Trustees of the Millburn Library, and the Friends of the Millburn Library on May 7th have a program at 7 p.m. Vivian Gordon is going to be discussing the lore of portraiture It's mostly Renaissance portraits and discussing the portraits from 3 different museums, the Frick, the Neue Gallery, and the National Gallery. And on April 7th at 2 p.m., the Friends of the Millburn Library is going to have a movie afternoon. It's sensory friendly, and they're going to have Wreck-It Ralph, and it's to commemorate Autism Awareness Month and the start of National Library Week. The Friends of the Millburn Library are presenting a sensory-friendly showing of Wreck-It Ralph. The film will be shown in the auditorium on the library's 2nd floor and will offer an opportunity for individuals living with autism spectrum disorder or anyone for whom the environment is suitable and their families to enjoy this fun film in a safe and accepting environment. For this showing, the lights will be dimmed and the sound turned slightly down. Audience members are not required to remain seated during the show, but are welcome to get up and walk or sing. Meeting room B will be available for those who need to take a break during the movie, and quiet activities will be available. Pre-registration is required.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Benjamin Lieberberg.
Hello, everybody. To begin, I'd like to show you what will be our first community arts engagement project, celebrating diversity. This is our mill wheel, and I invite you all to attend on Sunday, April 7th, and join us for a community art project. We will have Dan Fenelon, who's done some other work in Morristown, will be joining us. We will create a community wheel, as well as have participation from hopefully other organizations that will be there to think about their own vision for their own community, their own individual group wheel, which will be on display in September. There'll be cookies, there'll be lemonade, there'll be iced tea, and there'll be craft projects for our young residents. So I would encourage you all, rain or shine, on Sunday, April 7th, mark your calendars, 2 to 4. That's the mill wheel. Any questions? Feel free to reach out. Thanks. I'm gonna put this back before it rolls away.
Who made that?
It was made in the Amish country. It is completely sustainable and not only decorative but functional.
I was gonna say, it looks like it could work.
It weighs about 40 pounds. Okay, I attended the Senior Citizen Advisory Subcommittee on March 7th. Happy to report that our seniors are attending all of our programs. Enrollment has been consistent and steady. One noteworthy increase is the senior bus ride participants, which is up about 10%. This is the free bus that takes our seniors to doctor's appointments, the supermarket, monthly trips to Short Hills Mall, Livingston Mall, and ridership in 2017 was 1,783, and in 2018 it was 1,953. Most recently, some of the programs, they attended a lunch at Harold's Deli in Edison, where everyone was well fed for the entire week, I'm told. If anybody knows what those sandwiches look like, you'll know why. Springtime programs includes a trip to the Montclair Art Museum, Somerset Patriots. On a sad note, the Old Guard Millburn chapter is phasing out, and we'll be looking at merger options with either a local municipality, either Summit or Springfield. Membership has not increased in that organization, and members are urged to join the Friday Friend group that meets at Bauer for social activities. Two noteworthy government programs to assist seniors with their property taxes. One is the homestead rebate. It's basically a credit to the tax bill. And the other is something called PTR, or senior freeze, which if your income is less than, I believe it's $87,000, your property taxes are frozen at a certain rate, and each year you must reapply. I'm giving you the very short Reader's Digest version, but if you have questions about the program, I encourage you to contact Donna Ruggiero, our tax collector, and she can walk you through it privately. The Parking Ad Hoc Committee met on Monday. Last week. The 11th, yeah. And I also would like to report that we will be starting our internship parking program This came to our attention last year that interns that are either working locally or in New York City don't have a mechanism for parking their cars in the lots that is both efficient and not expensive. So from May 1st through September 1st, we'll have a seasonal fee of $75. You'll come to Town Hall, you'll show your driver's license and your letter of employment, and you'll receive a hang tag for parking in lot 14, 16, or 19. And that's the one behind Enzo's. These are not the quote-unquote traditional lots that are monthly commuters, so you'll be walking a little bit, but it's certainly very accessible and allows students to get a discounted rate. The marijuana legislation update, which is fast approaching. Next Monday, March 25th, the New Jersey State, the Senate and the Assembly will be voting on the legalization of recreational marijuana. And should it pass, it will go to the governor's office for final signature. And from that day, the municipality has 180 days to decide what they will do with marijuana locally. Now, what I learned today from speaking to somebody from the League of Municipalities was that what my understanding was prior was you opt in or you opt out. And if you opt out, then you have a 5-year period where you cannot back opt in. Well, what I learned today was if you opt out, you can opt back in at any time. And there are there's a couple things that I would like to add. This, as it stands now, the state tax will be $42 per ounce, and that will be imposed at the cultivation stage. And the local tax option, the proposal that's currently, is 3% for retail. There'll be 4 categories. Let me backtrack a minute. There'll be 4 categories of marijuana if the municipality decides to opt in. One is cultivation, one is manufacturing, one is wholesaling, and one is retailing. The local tax options for the categories are as follows. It'll be 3% for retail, 2% for cultivation, 2% for manufacturing, and 1% for wholesale. Now, there's some discrepancy in how these are going to be collected and distributed back to the municipality, but that's still up for further discussion. I also spoke with John McKean's Chief of Staff, Alex Kaiser, and I hope to have someone either from the League or from the legislature come in and speak to the community about the ramifications and implementation of the new legislation, and also to garner community input and viewpoint. If it passes on Monday, I suggest a community survey be done, and we are investigating professional options so that all residents would participate. If it does not pass, I agree with the mayor's recommendation to put this on the ballot in November on a non-binding referendum for community vote. So we'll have a better understanding next week, depending on what happens in the legislature. I spoke to somebody in the morning, and I was convinced this is happening Monday. We're gonna wake up, and this is what's gonna be. And then I spoke to somebody later in the day, and they said, no, not so fast. So I'm not a betting woman, so I don't know how to advise our residents, not yet anyway. So any other questions, I'll be happy to answer privately. You can just email me. Thanks.
Thanks. Committeewoman Prupus?
On March 11th, Deputy Mayor Benjamin Lieberberg and I met with the president of the school board, Alex Saltzman, for our monthly meeting. We talked about the new signage that was placed to direct the car line for the middle school drop-off. As a result of that conversation, we asked Alex McDonald for some police presence to initiate proper drop-off procedures. Signage was also addressed and modified to comply with the residential input. And then we also discussed the Millville project. And we have these meetings with the school board president and vice president monthly. On Friday, March 15th, the PTOC Safety had a successful meeting. The committee submitted the priorities to the township, Alex, The PTOC Safety Committee appreciates that Alex agreed to reassess the crossing guard placement schedule, and we'll have a report for the June's meeting. The next meeting of the PTOC Safety Committee is on April 26th at 9:15 at the Ed Center. The next bike walk to school day is on May 8th, and the crossing guard honorary breakfast will be in June. All schools were submitted for Safe Routes to School Gold status on January 31st. If they receive it, it will be valid for 3 years, and we will find out in April if it's awarded. And then the last issue that was brought up was school buses, and apparently many drivers in the township are going around the school buses, so please remember to stop behind the school buses and let the children get off and on, and then do not, go around the school bus. That's it.
Thank you. Administrator McDonald?
Just one brief report. It looks like the weather is finally turning, and just keep in mind that herbaceous waste pickup started yesterday. Public Works will be coming around, during your first trash collection day, and just keep in mind that branches and things like that should be kept to 4 feet in length and 4-inch in diameter to assist in that pickup. But happy for the change of weather and the cleanup, so we'll take it. That's it.
Thank you. Attorney Kit?
No report.
Attorney Kit. Save us. No. Okay, sorry. All right. George, County Representative.
Good evening. As Alex said, the weather's finally turning. Spring arrives this week, and the annual Cherry Blossom Festival will be taking place in Branchbrook Park from April 6th through the 14th. I dropped off postcards last week for residents if they're interested in any of the events. During that week, there will be a family fun day on Saturday, April 13th, and there will also be a 1 mile run. In other news, just the meeting that was canceled with the ECIA leasing program has been rescheduled. I'll send that notice to Alex's attention tomorrow. I believe it's taking place now on April 29th. It just came out late today, the rescheduling date. And finally, following up on emails between myself and Alex, the traffic signals in question at the intersections of Vauxhall and Millburn in Wyoming, those pictures were forwarded to the county engineer. They got back to me today. They're sending crews out to both those sites to adjust the signal so the pedestrians have clear sight lines and can view those signals appropriately.
What's the update on anything paving Ultra Hills Road and Parsonage Hill Road?
I'm told as soon as possible. Hopefully April.
Hopefully April. Early April?
I'm told hopefully early April.
Okay. And I believe you have some brochures over there for our residents. Municipal County, Essex County Guide, and Voter Rights Handbook. So those are on the table there for our residents.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also on the table is just a reminder, March is still Healthy Brain Awareness Month, and there's a couple of more brochures on the table for some opportunities. Okay, public comment. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address, and speak into the podium microphone so that your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever an audience or committee member reads from a prepared statement, please give or email a copy to the Township Clerk's office at cgatty@millburntwp.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. If anyone has any comments, please come to the podium.
Jamie's here to 77 Jefferson Avenue, Short Hills. 2 comments. I guess there would be questions/comments. One about the electronic signs that went out to bid. Is there an update in any way, shape, or form with those at this point?
Just that the bids have been received and they're under legal review. It will be on the agenda for the committee, hopefully on April 2nd for the consideration.
Okay. As well as, now I know, and I think it's fantastic, I saw the picture up there for a minute about the Short Hills train station and everything that was spoken about it, I personally agree with. Is there any update with that project? So Is there lighting connected with that project as well? White lighting that would be connected with that?
Yeah, so we're currently talking about changing over our existing lightings to LED. It's just not that simple. It's not like changing a light bulb. And any new lighting, there in the plans, you can see that there are lighting, a lot of lighting. It's going to go down the length of the street.
And are there any plans for Millburn train station at this point?
That's a much bigger project. Those are county roads. It's not as easy and a smaller project, but that's something we're hoping to get grants, and we're definitely going to have our new traffic engineer looking into that. But that also needs to be done.
Fabulous, thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, Dave Cosgrove, 99 Oakview. I was asking for an update on what's going on with the Woodland project.
Yes, please.
There's been no change at all since we last talked. As a matter of fact, there hasn't been a mediation since January 2nd. We expect at some point that the special master will convene one, but there's been no change.
Okay, any dates scheduled that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Please. Janet.
Janet Pizar, 186 Main Street. I'd like to be written into the record, please. I'm recalling the last meeting when you gave the first PACT report, and the item did pick up on what you had said, and it wrote about having identified several target areas that cause the most distress and congestion in and around the town. I'd like to know how those target areas were identified and how they were diagnosed.
At the meeting, we sat around the table and we had the Google Maps up, and we literally looked at every point that went around the downtown where there was construction and where we all felt there was issues to be looked at.
So nothing objective, no objective scientific study to identify that this congestion is much more lengthy than other areas in the downtown, or there has been a significant decrease. There's been nothing objective. It's been totally subjective and anecdotal.
Well, we know that traffic light in front of Bubble Tea has been hit multiple times.
And how can you compare that to the past times? Because it has happened in the past. So if it happened, how many times since Complete Streets has been completed?
I'd have to get that exact number.
Okay, I think we need to know that.
Okay.
One or two meetings back, I happened to ask Nancy, Merchant Nancy from the jeweler, if she had been invited to participate on your PAC committee. She said no. And we know she was a very outspoken supporter of Complete Streets. So the question is your hand-picked PAC committee consisting of all like-minded people?
No.
Well, who was a complete Streets supporter that sits on your committee?
I'll have to re-interview them and find out their exact feelings. But we know we are all in agreement that something had to be done, and we chose that corner as the most problematic where.
But that's subjective, and there's no objective study about that. And if you're going to be investing taxpayer money on yet more traffic studies in the downtown, I believe that it should be a referendum on the November ballot asking residents if they want to spend yet more tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, to rip up Complete Streets and to study, again, more traffic studies into the downtown. And because you're all so positive, you're sitting up there because of your opposition to the Complete Streets project, I would think you would welcome a referendum.
Well, I did try to referendum put on
About
when it was all
flex parking, about the flex parking.
No, I believe when I was the minority up here, I did try to get a referendum about the residents' feelings on Complete Streets moving forward at all. I had no buy-in for referendum then.
Okay, but now you're three people.
So maybe we
and
could do that, Janet.
You're of the
We
mind.
can maybe put a few things
But
on the
I
referendum
think
in
your
November.
targeted areas to say you will accomplish those, it shows that the committee is already determined around predetermined agenda, predetermined goals. You said it yourself tonight, you will accomplish this. It's based on anecdotal, subjective, and non-objective qualifications. And I think a referendum is in order to see, do the residents want to pay for yet again, traffic studies and ripping out part of complete streets to any degree.
I will talk about that with my committee members. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Merrily Respect, 91 Whittingham Terrace. I would just like to remind everybody on the council and that comes to these meetings that, as was said by one of the former council members, that the election was the referendum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Ann Rosenthal and a resident of this community for the last 86 years. I was born here, and I feel that I had to come forward and thank you for two things that are going to be discussed and were approved. And certainly the first one was the zoning ordinance on short-term rentals. I support you 100% on this. I think it will just change this community into something that it wasn't in the past. And I want to keep Millburn the quality community that it has been all these years. And I have to thank you for that. And the other issue is the issue on the I think it has to do with sales for that
Right.
the gas station that was proposed. That, of course, directly affects my neighborhood, and I feel very strongly about that. I think that, first of all, I feel very strongly about that area because it's a historical area, and I'm sad to think that no one really ever recognized the importance of that one intersection there and the land where the gasoline station is. Many people fighting for this country lost their lives there, and we still have the historical monument that's on the bridge. It was the beginning of the Springfield battle. And if there was a way that we could protect that corner historically, I would like to see it happen. I could just wish that gasoline station out of there, and that we would do something to recognize it as the historical spot of Millburn during the Revolutionary War.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very good points. Appreciate it.
Nancy Stone, 10 Fielding Road in Short Hills. For the record, I just wanted to comment, I appreciate your bringing my name up. I was not asked, nor did I want to be asked, and I thank you for not asking me. I want to put that on the record. So I hope you do your job for what needs to be done, because 90 days in office, I would like to know what you think your greatest highlight has been in the last 90 days, which are clearly awarding these contracts. My question is, how were these contracts awarded, and how did you come to that decision, and will the public know how the town council voted on this?
I was going to address that before the consent agenda.
Terrific, thank you.
Mayor Aglow, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak and also for the printout. My name is Neil Weissman. I live in Lower Manhattan. I'm here on behalf of Complete George, 200 organizations, businesses, electeds, and communities calling on the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to widen the bike paths on the George Washington Bridge, and I'm here to ask for a resolution of support. The George is the sole bikeable connector between North Jersey and New York City. It is already terribly overcrowded at 3,700 cyclists a day on weekends, and that's been growing at 10% per year. Over the next 7 years, the Port Authority will rip out and restore the 1931 paths as part of a $2 billion restoration but unless those paths are widened to comply with national standards, AASHTO, service across the 1 mile span will degrade to walk your bikes. This will hobble the growth of cycling across the region for generations, impacting tourism, public health, property taxes, sustainability, and resilience, annually worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Conversely, wider paths would spur construction of a connected bike grid, such as envisioned in the Bergen Park Master Plan, and that would connect all the county parks with bikeways. This is important because while we may have survived the summer of hell, winter is coming. And when I say that, I mean extended, widespread disruption to bus and train service over the coming decades, resulting from planned upgrades to the bus terminal and Penn Station, plus any number of unplanned weather or man-made events, including, unless we are really lucky, emergency repairs to the Hudson rail tunnels, which would knock out 75% of train service for 200,000 commuters for 2 years. And should any of this come to pass, AASHTO-compliant GWB paths could safely sustain 20,000 bike commuters per day, drawing first from communities immediately near the George, but reducing congestion and freeing up capacity for those further out. And lest anyone think that a Hudson Tunnel failure is some remote and manageable event, last September, a metal bracket from the tunnel ceiling pierced the passenger compartment of a moving train. Now, you have the picture of that in the back of the first page. If that metal had caused a loss of life, those tunnels would have been closed for a very long time. Right now, 60 North Jersey municipalities are in support, as are the Union, Hudson, Bergen, Passaic Freeholders, and Sierra Club, New Jersey, and I would like a resolution from Millburn Township. And if you have any questions, you have detailed materials and there's a website, but if you have any questions, I'm certainly available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We all have a copy of this. You have a copy for the website, Christine? Okay.
Hi there, Marilyn Bernie, 420 Millburn Avenue in Millburn. I have a whole list of questions, and I probably won't get to them in a 3-minute time span, so I'm happy to come back or email you with the additional points that I don't get to. But in order, I'm just going to see where we get to. And all of these are mere questions. They are no accusations, and they're to bring things to your attention. They're not meant to be argumentative. The first question I have is, from the committee members, is there anyone that is actual boots on the ground on a weekly basis to see what is changing and what happens in downtown? This specifically relates to signage and garbage. Today, for example, I was walking downtown. The area from Flywheel to the corner of Starbucks is riddled with garbage, with cigarette butts, with cups, with wrappers, with things like that. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, that it's the responsibility of the landlords or the businesses to sweep up those walks. It's not happening. It's not happening once a week. It's not happening twice a week. It's not happening, period. Plus, the garbage is then flowing into the beds, which then may become a township issue. So I know that resources are limited. I know that people try, but it would be great if someone was overseeing this to try just a little bit harder. We want to keep our town beautiful. The second thing on signage is when I reviewed section 609.10 of the zoning ordinance, there's nothing specifically stated in there on the lit open signs or the flashing signs that some businesses have now put in there. I was wondering if there was any feeling on this or limitation on this, because the town's, in my opinion, starting to look a little tacky with those signs blinking, and they're not uniform either. They're all different signs. So I would like it if maybe you could take a look at that. Then on the Township Code, some of them seem unclear and conflicting. So I'm wondering if this committee has any plans to
read through front to back the Township Code and see what conflicts with what. For example, 10-4.4 states that the exterior of a premises and the condition of the exterior of structures and accessory structures shall be maintained so the appearance of the premises and the structures shall not constitute a blighting factor, yada, yada, yada. There are so many blighting factors. If you walk through the neighborhood behind downtown, which I guess is the Washington School, and then, I mean, blighting factor, I guess it's subjective, but when roofs have holes in them and siding is falling off and couches from inside are sitting on front porches and rotting away, I consider that to be a blighting factor. I want to commend you on the Airbnb ordinance that you're about to pass. The only thing I will say, the one that was published, I believe, in either the TAP or the Patch, when I read it, it was a very confusing ordinance. So I hope that you're going to wordsmith that a little bit. The one thing I might want to ask you to do is to consider intermittent times when, like, Baltusrol has their golf club, people might want to rent out their homes for an extraordinary amount of money that doesn't bring in. I don't know if there's a caveat maybe to think about for something like that. We're very close to Baltusrol, and those golfers will pay a lot of money for these nice homes. One other thing I wanted to bring to your attention was the parking garage, the commuter garage. There are, and Diana, I mentioned this to you in passing months ago, but there are 2 charging stations in that garage. Both are in commuter spots. So anybody who can park in non-commuter spots cannot charge their cars. We're moving towards an era where more people are buying electric vehicles. Maybe we can look into adding some chargeable spots or stations in the garage. Beyond that, in that garage, and this actually came up personally a couple months ago, and Alex was able to handle it, so thank you. On the weekends, those commuter passes are technically still in effect, and people are technically not allowed to park on the commuter spaces. So maybe we can have a sign that those commuter passes or those parking spaces allow for shopper parking on the weekends or at night.
Wait, isn't the commuters just Monday through Friday?
Mm-mm.
No? Oh, I'm not a commuter, I don't know.
So just for example,
Sure.
if
Yeah.
someone is having an event at one of the restaurants downtown and brings in 50 cars to town on a Saturday, there is nowhere for them to park without getting approval from the police station.
Wait,
And
let me you can't park at the train station on Saturday?
if
No.
there's,
Not if
they're
you're a
commuter
non-resident.
spots.
Oh.
So-
News to me,
No, no.
thank you. I thought Saturday you could
on
park at the train
Saturday,
station.
residents can
can.
park in those,
But not non-residents.
not non-residents.
So if you're having people come into town,
Right.
there is nowhere for them to park. And correct me if I'm wrong, we do want to get people into town. So we need places for them to park. So that might be something you want to revisit. Has there been any talk about Taylor Park and allowing dogs? And
wish.
this was on my list way before. I just got a dog about a week ago, but this was on my list way before that. And I was just wondering.
Well, I don't have enough buy-in from the rec department. They feel we should not have dogs. I said, I believe strongly we should have dogs with strict leash laws and poop scoop stations.
There are dogs there.
Of course
And
there
nobody's ticketing them. But, you know, I do have friends that come into town with their dogs and they won't walk in there because they don't want to break the law. So,
Write a letter to the rec department.
okay,
Who's the
Rec Commission.
rec commission? Bob Hogan,
okay.
right?
Can I keep going or am I?
I don't know. I can't see the clock. You can.
I'm way past. I'm
Okay.
a double.
All right, 2 more. Go ahead.
Okay,
These are all good. Go ahead.
okay. I was just wondering if there's anywhere I can find a list of contaminated sites within town. And I'll email all of this to Christine to you,
There's a
so,
state website.
you know, there is a state, okay,
Yeah, if you email me, I'll send it to you.
thank you.
List of known contaminants.
Okay,
One more.
one more, okay. So traffic, the ad hoc committee, the one thing I would say, I'm all for ad hoc committees, I'm all for studies, I'm all for the whole thing. I don't know that there's anybody on your committee that walks to and from the train stations every day. And I think that might be a good addition to that committee. And then I don't think so. And then also downtown, as far as police presence, I realize that the police station doesn't want to be a gotcha. And I realize we also have limited police, but there needs to be more enforcement down there for people who are double parking and people who, especially, they double park right on the other side of Main Street when you're crossing over Main on Millburn, and also for jaywalkers.
Marilyn, I agree with you 100%. I would call for ticket blitz. People will go nuts. But
I
think
don't say a ticket blitz.
Well, start ticketing.
But
I spoke
there
to-
is no presence at any time.
Right. We
And
could have some officers on foot. I think we have to do start ticketing. People know that some towns are known as lenient and some towns are known as strict, and we have to become a little strict. And our residents will be ticketed. They will scream, they will holler, but I believe it will change behavior.
Okay, one last thing.
Okay.
Is there any plan on having the county come in and repave the county roads? They are horrendous. Millburn, Essex, Old Short Hills Road, Parsonage. I swear I will have a flat tire by the end of next month.
Came a couple minutes late, but George, our county executive here, we are on the list for Ultra Hills Road and Parsonage.
Please.
We are hopefully first on the list.
Okay, that's it. I will email you,
Thank you.
Christine.
Perfect, appreciate it. Anybody else? That was very good. Okay. The committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. The resolutions listed on the consent agenda for consideration are as follows. The bills list, authorization cancellation of a sewer charge, 1-year extension for the open air cafe behind formerly Charlie Brown's, our new professionals, I'll get to that in a moment, and we are also awarding a professional service agreement for engineering services at the DPW facility. And this 19088 is to the retention of engineering services relative to a feasible study only for the relocation of the Millburn Department of Public Works facility to a location on JFK Parkway. This is purely a feasibility study to see if that site would even be workable for our DPW. That's as far as we can go on that until we get that report back. We are awarding several new professional contracts tonight. Millburn had not gone out for RFPs for way over 10 years. We interviewed many, many firms and professionals in a very fair and open process. I believe we have awarded contracts to the best individuals to service Millburn based on their presentations. These are not political awards, these are not monetarily based. This was purely on the presentations of what these professionals could offer Millburn and to workability with our town hall people. We are maintaining excellence, and in the process, we'll be saving thousands of dollars. This was a very, very good process. It was a very fair and open process. We received a lot of applications. We interviewed everybody who sent us an application, and the people we are awarding services tonight is we are retaining Attorney Falcon's firm, Special Tax Counsel, his first name John? John Lloyd, a new traffic engineer, Stantec, a new auditor, Nisavachia. We are retaining historic preservation consultant, Barton Ross, and we also approval of some raffle licenses. So I hope that answers your question, Nancy, but it was a very fair and very open and very intensive process. We spent 3 months interviewing 20 people, 30 people, quite a few.
But how was the vote taken? Did all of you agree on it, or did some people agree?
It's who was selected, and different people sat in on different meetings.
There was
We
a
all voted,
consensus.
yeah.
There was a consensus.
For
Wasn't-
each of the awards that we're doing was by consensus.
This wasn't by fiat by the mayor.
Right. And it was not pre-selected. This was actually, I didn't know who was going to come through, who was going to flush out in this process. It was as fair and open as any process could have been. And I am really proud of the township for going through this. This was a really intense process. We received packets and packets of information.
Let me just, so Nancy, so the way it works is because these are in closed meetings, and after we interviewed, let's say it was for the township attorney, after we interviewed whichever firms were up for township attorney, we then had a discussion amongst whoever was at those interviews, and amongst us, we had discussions, and we all came to a consensus for each of these categories.
So you were happy happy with the choices? Because I know that Tara was very proponent on, cost cutting and.
Well, we were all satisfied with the results.
I think in the spirit of transparency and openness, I think we made some very, very good choices for the township, where we drove engagement to look at things with a fresh set of eyes, and I think that we all participated, and as Cheryl said, we had a Q&A where it was open for discussion. If there was a particular issue or question that any of us had with any of the professional services, it was an open forum where we could ask questions and had a Q&A in closed session.
Let's see what happens.
You said 3 of these turned out to be the same people as before?
And they had to, present, just like everyone else.
They had a re-interview for the job,
Yes.
quite frankly. That's really what it was. It was a question of looking at making the best business decisions for the township. That's the way I viewed, and I would concur that my colleagues up here looked at it in that frame of reference. Things had not been looked at for 10 years, so it was important for a fresh set of eyes.
And it was a huge undertaking, and I'm proud of the results. So, are there any comments from the committee or public in regards to any items listed on the consent agenda?
What is the authorization of the sewer charge, cancellation of the sewer charge?
It's the demolition of a building.
May I have a motion to approve the resolutions listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Mayor Phil Eglo?
Yes. Okay. So there is a little change, Mrs. Rosenthal. We are going to be tabling the next 2 items on the agenda, 24-2519 and 25-2519, concerning the prohibition of short-term rentals. I'll explain, both of which were passed on first reading at the public meeting on February 19th. At our meeting of March 5th, and following the receipt of public comment, the committee agreed that additional time is required for further review and research on this topic, and that we would consider a motion to table the ordinances when they come up at this meeting on second read. The adoption of a motion to table would postpone indefinitely the consideration of these ordinances until such time they are taken up again, either in their current form or amended form, whereupon they would be reintroduced on first reading. Accordingly, the chair will entertain a motion to table ordinances 24-15-19 and 25-25-19. And we were receiving emails, some people in favor, some people not in favor, and we thought that instead of rushing through this, we were going to really hear from more people such as yourselves who have varying opinions, and we really want to take everyone's opinion into account before we just push something through. And hearing from you helps us because we want to know how our residents feel. So I'm glad you came out tonight. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the resolution? Oh, wait, no, sorry.
Table.
May I have a motion to table these resolutions?
So moved.
May I have a second? These ordinances.
Second.
May I have a roll call?
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Mayor Phil Eglo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Prupus is scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2526-19.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2526-19, an ordinance of the Township of Millburn, County of Essex, State of New Jersey, amending the general licensing ordinance of the Township of Millburn concerning canvassers and solicitors. The purpose of this ordinance is to enact a comprehensive revision of the township's door-to-door canvassing and solicitation regulations and to bring them into conformance with controlling constitutional case law. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with the law.
I declare the hearing open. Any comments? Okay.
Hi, Marilyn Respect, 91 Whittingham Terrace. Does this include canvassing by religious organizations as well?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, because I just want to make a comment that I had my doorbell rung at 9 o'clock one night, and I called the police. I didn't ask who they were. I was annoyed that they rang the bell because my grandchild was sleeping and they were going to wake him up. But when I called the police, they told me if it was a religious organization, they could ring the bell at 9 o'clock at night. So if that doesn't fit into this, that's fine, but I'd like that to be looked at if possible.
There is a remedy in this ordinance, which is widely utilized throughout the country, and now Millburn is adopting it, whereby you can go on a list, which is maintained, that people are not to disturb you. You can also place a sign at your driveway or where someone coming up the door, and
Like a do not call list for your house.
you're not
Correct.
accepting people
Okay.
at the door when they ring the bell to sell you something or hand you a pamphlet or whatever.
Okay, thank you very much.
The ordinance has a procedure, and it would be done through, I believe, the clerk's office.
I move that the public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a,
So before you do a second, when do we discuss it? During public comment or?
do you want to discuss it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
I just want to say that I support it because we currently have an ordinance that's not valid, and I think fixing it is a good thing.
Right, and went through a big process to make it perfect, and it addresses all the needs.
Perfect might be an overstatement.
Okay, I'll go for perfect. Close to perfect, okay. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Lieber?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Mayor Eglo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2527-19. I present for consideration an ordinance to amend and supplement Article 6 of the Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance of the Township of Millburn to allow temporary real estate directional signs for use during an open house. The purpose of this ordinance is to allow for and establish guidelines for the use of real estate directional or trailblazing signage for open houses. Tonight is the time set for a public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law. Anybody want to have any discussion or comments? Public or committee?
Well, as I said last time, I think this is one of those cases that you're pushing it through for no good reason to do it as quickly as you are. But, and I don't think it's well written and I think it's got some problems with it. But that being said.
Okay. I sponsor that the public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Burstein?
No.
Ms. Lieber?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Mayor Eglo?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Also, I present for consideration an ordinance entitled 2528-19, an ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Millburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. Analysis of existing development within the township's OR2 zone, concentrated at the east end of Millburn Avenue, revealed that the district contains principally office uses, including medical offices, together with a number of retail, personal service uses. Neither retail sales establishments nor eating and drinking establishments currently exist within this district. While the built condition largely conforms to the current OR2 zone standards with regard to use, the subject amendment accomplishes the following objectives. It expressly allows for medical offices, which is not presently the case. And in recognition of the fact that OR2 zone is in close proximity to established residential uses and zone, it expands upon and reinforces the definition of retail services, rendering it clear that retail service use shall not include establishments primarily engaged in the sale of products or merchandise, including food or drink, to the general public. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law. I declare the hearing open. Would anybody like to comment from the committee or the public? I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Burstein?
Yep.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Mary Egla?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does any committee member have an item of old business they wish to address? New business, I believe. Alex would like to discuss new business?
Yes, I'd like to just briefly discuss with the committee the potential of placing an ordinance for your consideration that would combine the Short Hills train station lots of Lot 3, which is the large one directly across from the Short Hills train station, Lot 8, which is the one on the hill on the corner of Baltus Row and Chatham, and Lots 11, which are the two lots that abut the train station on the side of it. The purpose of combining the lots is to create one solitary lot for the Short Hills train station that would then allow us to combine handicap parking in a location that is reasonable for that use, which would be next to the train station. Right now, what would happen is any resurfacing of Lot 3, Lot 8, or Lot 11 would result in handicap parking in those lots, but would not allow for parking next to the train station, which is, conceivably the purpose of those lots. So I just wanted to sort of bring that up, and if there were any questions or concerns about that, but would like to draft an ordinance for the committee's consideration.
I think it makes sense, especially with us looking into the Short Hills train station and having handicap spots across the street makes a little sense, but you're saying if those lots are there, they have to, by law, have handicap spots.
Correct.
So, yeah, I think this is a very good, smart idea.
Will you have more parking by doing that?
Yes, you actually will. So if you combine those lots, you will need 7 handicap spaces with 2 van accessible spaces. If you do not, then you would have 10 handicap spaces with 3 van accessible spaces spread out between those lots. And noticing the incline too of the approach from Lot 8 to the train station, I think having them next to the train station would be beneficial.
Yeah, I agree.
And will there be signage? What will this lot be called now?
Well, yes, it would be a we'd have to find a number for it now. But yeah, it would be codified as and written in orders as a different lot, and perhaps just called the Short Hills train station lots. But in signage would be established at where that parking would be placed. I think also this is sort of in conjunction with not in conjunction, but would assist in any of those changes that might be considered by the Township Committee at the Short Hills train station.
So if we all in agreement, do we instruct our attorney to start drafting that ordinance?
You can instruct me and I'll get it started.
Okay.
Yep.
Are we in agreement? This is a good idea?
Yep.
Good idea? Okay, Alex, you're instructed.
Thank you.
Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so I'll miss you on,
Yeah.